Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't a monster in a mask. He was a quiet man with glasses and a fridge full of horrors. Some monsters smile at you in daylight. Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of sources and pull out the key insights you need. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Jeffrey Dahmer, trying to understand the disturbing reality behind what looked like a very normal life.
Yeah, our aim isn't just to recount the horrors, but to really dig into the sources, understand the layers here. How did this happen? What can we learn from looking closely at the details?
It's genuinely unsettling when you picture it. Milwaukee, late 80s. Oxford apartments.
Right.
And Dahmer's just this quiet guy, worked nights, kept to himself.
Neighbors didn't report anything strange. Some even said he was polite, offered them food, sandwiches.
And yet, inside apartment 213, it was a completely different, horrific story.
That contrast is precisely what's so disturbing, isn't it?
Right.
The sources really emphasize how that outward normalcy, it functioned as a perfect disguise.
That's what we want to explore, how that mask of normalcy worked.
Exactly. This wasn't some obvious villain. He was just there, part of the everyday scenery.
Which makes it even more terrifying. To really get a handle on this, we probably need to go back to his early life.
Definitely. He was born in 1960. His father, Lionel, a chemist described as bright, logical, but maybe emotionally distant.
Yeah, and his mother, Joyce, struggled quite a bit with her mental health. Panic attacks, heavily medicated, even when she was pregnant with Jeffrey.
So the picture the sources paint is, well, not a stable home environment, lots of loud arguments apparently.
And maybe worse silences in between, just a lot of chaos.
When you have to think, those early years, they form a foundation, right? A shaky one, it seems, in this case. That lack of emotional security often comes up when trying to understand extreme violence later on.
And even as a kid, there were. Well, looking back, they seem like red flags. He was withdrawn, didn't laugh much, didn't really make friends easily.
And the fascination with dead animals.
Right, collecting roadkill, keeping bones, bleaching carcasses. The sources say it was often just dismissed, oh, boys will be boys, you know.
Which is a critical point.
Yeah.
How do we interpret kids' behavior? What looks like curiosity could be something else, a warning sign.
And dismissing it like that feels like a missed chance to see something wasn't right.
Yeah, a potential failure to notice or maybe address some developing issues.
And it didn't stop. High school. He started drinking heavily.
In class even.
In class, before school, at home, teachers apparently noticed he was sort of checked out, staring into space, looking through people.
Again, no real intervention.
Seems like it. It feels like there were these points, these moments where maybe things could have gone differently if someone had stepped in more forcefully.
Well, we can't know for sure, obviously, but the sources do point to these missed opportunities. His struggles were visible, but maybe overlooked or just explained away.
Then his parents divorced.
A big turning point, according to the sources.
Yeah, he was left alone in the family house. No supervision, no real support, just him and his thoughts. And these urges the sources mentioned were growing stronger.
That isolation, especially after the family broke up, seems really significant. No structure, no one checking in. It might have just let those darker thoughts fester, you know, without any kind of check.
Which leads us directly to that summer, after the divorce. This moment, the sources pinpoint as critical.
Stephen Hicks.
Stephen Hicks, yeah. A hitchhiker he picked up, had a few beers, talked. But when Hicks wanted to leave,
Something snapped.
that fear of being alone again, abandonment, it seemed to just overwhelm him and led to that first awful act.
The sources really stress how impulsive that first killing seems to have been, driven by that deep fear. It wasn't like the later, more calculated crimes, but it was crossing a terrible line.
And what's really chilling is how easily he seemed to get away with it initially.
Yeah, got stopped by police, right? With garbage bags in the car.
Exactly, bags with evidence, but they didn't really question him deeply. He drove off. And in his mind, according to the sources, that registered as the perfect crime. He got away with murder.
That must have had a huge psychological impact, getting away with it the first time.
Probably reinforced the idea that he could do these things. That lack of scrutiny early on, it's really troubling.
Definitely. It might have just emboldened him, thinking there weren't real consequences.
So after Hicks, there was this long period, nearly a decade, where outwardly, things seemed quiet again.
He moved around a lot.
Yeah, tried the army, got discharged, lived in Florida, went back to Ohio, then Milwaukee, had different jobs, sandwich shops, blood banks.
The Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
Right. But the sources are clear. Those thoughts, those urges, they never really went away. They followed him.
So even when he was trying to live a quote-unquote normal life, the underlying issues were still there, deeply rooted. It suggests a real internal struggle, however warped.
He even tried living with his grandmother for a while, maybe hoping her presence would help somehow, keep him in check.
But it didn't work out that way.
No, the sources suggest it might have even made things worse internally. The pressure of hiding it, maybe?
Could be having someone close, representing connection. Maybe it just intensified the need to conceal who he really was, what he was thinking.
Yeah.
It might have actually exacerbated things.
And then he moved into apartment 213.
And that seems to be when everything changed. The floodgates opened.
The sources say he felt like he didn't have to hide anymore. That move, just changing his address, seems to mark this horrifying escalation.
It's like that apartment became his own isolated world. No more external constraints, no immediate oversight. He could just act on the impulses.
And the frequency just shot up, bringing men back almost weekly.
Luring them in different ways. Money, drinks, offering to take photos.
Some left, thankfully, but
Yeah.
most didn't.
And his methods evolved. Altered drinks, induced sleep, then death.
It's a chilling progression, calculated.
Yeah, the sources detail that pattern. Luring, incapacitating, killing. Over and over.
Even his grandmother, though she didn't know the full horror, she noticed things weren't right.
Strange smells.
Yeah, smells, knives, mannequin parts he had, boxes he kept locked or unopened, things that made her uneasy.
Enough that she eventually asked him to leave.
Right. Which in a way was pushing back against something she sensed was deeply wrong, even if she couldn't imagine what.
Her intuition picked up on something. Another hint of the sinister reality underneath.
Then, 1991. It all unraveled, not because of some brilliant investigation, but because someone escaped. Tracy Edwards. His escape was the key. The sources recount how he managed to keep his cool somehow in that situation and get away.
Imagine being invited over, noticing the weird smells, the acid containers, that barrel.
Terrifying, and then Dahmer tries to handcuff him, pulls a knife.
Edwards staying calm enough to wait for a chance, then bolting and finding the police. It's incredible bravery.
Absolutely. His actions brought everything to light, stopped it.
And what the police found in 213, it's almost beyond words.
A human head in the refrigerator.
3 more in the freezer.
Dozens of photos, documenting victims alive and dead. Drawers with preserved remains. A drum of acid.
Just gruesome. The way he kept things, documented them, it shows how methodical he was, how profoundly disturbed.
And Dahmer himself? No resistance? Almost relieved, maybe?
He just said, I did this. You'll find more if you look. Like he was resigned to it.
17 lives, just gone. 17 families completely devastated.
The scale of it, the absolute horror, it just shocked everyone. The impact on those families is unimaginable.
At the trial, he didn't plead insanity.
No, he confessed. In detail.
Imagine being a family member in that courtroom, hearing those details. The sources mention one man trying to abduct Dahmer. Just raw pain and anger boiling over.
Completely understandable. It must have been incredibly traumatic for everyone there, especially the families.
He got 16 life sentences, but his time in prison wasn't actually that long.
And his behavior there.
Yeah.
Sources say he joked about the crimes, made disturbing things out of food.
Yeah. Didn't try to hide who he was. Imagine how other inmates reacted to that.
Continued lack of remorse, it seems. Complete detachment.
Then, 1994. Killed by another inmate, Christopher Scarver, while cleaning a bathroom.
And he didn't fight back.
No resistance at all. The sources even hint he might have welcomed it, wanted it, maybe?
A sudden end. But maybe one he saw coming? Or even desired on some level. It raises questions about his final state of mind.
What sticks with you, what the sources keep coming back to, is that jarring contrast, the quiet, normal-seeming guy.
And the absolute horror hidden inside. He used his quietness like camouflage.
Exactly. It's profoundly unsettling because evil didn't look like evil. It looked ordinary.
And that's why it's so chilling. It forces you to realize that monsters don't always announce themselves.
People were stunned, not just by the crimes, but by how calmly he described them. Not raving, but organized, detached.
That lack of emotion while talking about horrific acts, it shows such a deep disconnect from his victim's humanity, from the gravity of it all.
Psychological evaluations called him deeply disordered, emotionally stunted, desperate for control, terrified of abandonment.
Unable to separate affection from possession, almost. Love meant holding on, even in death.
It offers some insight maybe into the why, the motivations. deep issues with attachment, control.
But after it all came out, everyone wanted an explanation. Blame the parents, the media, the drinking.
But the sources suggest there's no single easy answer, right? How does a kid collecting bugs turn into that?
It's probably a mix of things.
Yeah.
His upbringing, his psychology, maybe societal failures to see the signs. No one explains it all.
It's mentioned he got a lot of letters in prison.
Yeah, everything from morbid curiosity to people trying to understand or even save him. He rarely replied, apparently.
But he did get baptized towards the end.
Yes, through correspondence with a religious woman who believed he could be redeemed. It's a strange, complicated footnote.
In the end, he was cremated. No grave.
But his legacy, the story, it persists. People still debate what he was. Predator, broken man, product of neglect, pure evil.
Maybe all of the above somehow.
The lack of a grave kind of mirrors the lack of easy answers, doesn't it? The horror and unease remain.
And maybe the most disturbing question the sources leave us with is, how many others are out there?
Living among us, unnoticed, trusted.
Because they don't fit our idea of a monster. Dahmer wasn't hiding in the shadows. He lived upstairs, said hello, offered a sandwich.
And behind his door, a private hell.
We only saw it when it was far, far too late. It's more than just a crime story. It's a warning.
A deeply unsettling one. It shows how deceptive evil can be and why we can't just rely on surface appearances. Monsters don't always look like monsters.
If this story shook you, like, subscribe, and join us tomorrow for more true horror.